Hello everybody, my name is GamesBrained, and I'm here to close the book on my Hyrule Warriors content with a very requested list. And that is the top 10 best characters in the game, in my own opinion. Something that I want to note before I go into this is that my list is not very likely going to line up with this or that quote-unquote official tier list for the game. Almost every character from the middle of the pack on up, with the right weapon build, could be called top tier, but the picks I've made here aren't going to take that much into consideration. As I have created guides for every character in the game, I have put a lot of thought into the overall balance in the capabilities and movesets for each one of them. And with that in mind, I have put together the following list of 10 of whom I feel truly deserve to be here above all the others. One quick note, however, is that I have decided not to include the Master Sword on this list. With its damage buff and a few, frankly, broken mechanics, it feels kind of like it was specifically made to be more powerful than anything else in the game. Something which does fit to the lore, but it makes me frustrated as a player who wants a balanced roster. Before I begin, I have two honorable mentions who I felt maybe should have been top 10, but just couldn't cut it. And those are going to be Link's gauntlets and Ganondorf's blades, with the former being cut due to a lack of range and less than stellar combos, and the latter being cut due to a slow charging heavy attack mechanic and an overall slow speed. With those two beloved weapons out of the way, it's time to move on to number 10. We're starting off the list with Skull Kid, a somewhat underrated character. Despite being a beloved icon of both the Zelda series and the best Zelda game of them all at the same time, many people seem ready to discount this little imp's ability to dominate on multiple fields of combat. On top of having a great standard string, he also has universally good or great combos, while also having one of the best boss weak point killers in the game, second in my opinion only to Wizro. About the only weak point of the Skull Kid is his extremely bad heavy attack. It's a cute reference that he brings in the Twilight Princess puppets, but in practice, it's just not ever really worth using. This one blemish aside, Skull Kid is an all-around great character who definitely stands above the rest of his peers. However, he doesn't quite make it any further into this list. Number 9. Next up we have Marin, who was just about going to be the best Legends DLC character added to the game, up until the very end, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves yet. Marin is a character that just feels right as soon as you start using her. I'm not sure how the developers could have managed to make swinging a bell feel badass, but they definitely have. There are a lot of characters in this game that toy with the idea of having a semi-projectile standard attack string, but in my opinion, Marin is the only one who gets it right, which allows her to be used both at close and medium range. On top of this, all of her combos are useful, with lots of focus, area, and a whole lot of water element damage all working together. Her heavy attack is also to be commended, with a very simple but effective building mechanic, which you can unleash from time to time to decimate small groups or commanders. Compared to the others on this list, she is a little bit on the slow side, but from everything else she offers as a pick, there is simply no way that the absolute best water element character couldn't make it onto this list. Number 8. Ghirahim, or Ghirahim, however you want to pronounce it, is a character that took me a long time to fully appreciate, but once it clicked, it was instantly clear why he was truly top 10 material. Despite having probably the worst standard attack string and combos on this list, it is his heavy attack potential that makes him rise up to this level of quality. When Ghirahim has someone in his sights, there is very little that can be done about it. His damage boosted attacks, as well as his straight up abusive mechanics that he can use once locked onto your enemies, means that your prey can't escape, block, or avoid your punishment whatsoever. Ghirahim is the king of one-on-one duels, something that perfectly fits his shadow element damage as well. Had the rest of his normal kit been smoother to use and more well-rounded, there's no doubt that he could have been higher on this list, but as it stands, 8 out of 10 isn't bad. Number 7. Out of all the characters in the game, I was probably the most surprised by Yuga. When first hearing about this DLC character pick for the last Legends DLC, I really had no idea how much potential would be hiding in this character all along. Perhaps fitting to his clownish visage, Yuga is the juggling king of Hyrule Warriors. Despite having a decent but not great kit all around, it is his heavy attack hold after combos which just makes him work so well. Out of all of the electricity characters in the game, nobody utilizes their element as well as does Yuga. And when you have your foe locked in an endless electricity-boosted juggling combo, you might end up feeling just a little bit bad for them by the end. Yuga, to me, marks the end of what some would call the A-level tier. From here on out, the final 6 characters to be found in this list play at such a higher level than the rest of the competition in the game that they make all the other picks seem suboptimal by comparison. Number 6. How do you make your original character stand out in a roster of legends? Well, you give her an insanely creative and effective moveset that's both simple to grasp and has a lot of depth for mastery, while also throwing in little series references that will appease fanboys wherever you can. Yes, it's true, little Miss Mary Sue Linkle here has an effectiveness that cannot be denied, as she flings herself around while shooting and blowing up everything in her vicinity. With a style that can only be called crossbow kata, Linkle can hardly be touched as she shoots all around her before launching into one of her super deadly and quick combos, all of which lead her into a nearly unstoppable heavy attack barrage. Also, you can take off her hood and she says dun 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 dun. As I said, they have to throw in these little series references to appease fanboys. Well, this one pleases me. Even though I see through what they're doing here with just about everything that Linkle can do, she's just so damn fun that I can hardly complain. Number 5. At last, we're in the final 5, and here is where things get really tricky. For many people, young Link is the most powerful character in the entire game. For me, on the other hand, I find it somewhat hard to say. It is true that when you are on a long, fierce deity rampage, there is nothing in this game that can said to be better, not even the Master Sword. But with this character in particular, there is a huge consistency problem. Without favorable circumstances, young Link loses a lot of his effectiveness. There are always going to be times when there aren't enough enemies or pickups to allow him to get his magic meter to where you want it to be. And on top of that, there might not even be enough enemies to even make a fierce deity rampage worth it. Young Link is situationally the strongest character in the game, but in my eyes that's just not enough to beat the final 4, who are always at their best regardless of their surroundings. Number 4. For this one, I'm sure that one of the great list makers of YouTube, Speedster, would approve of this pick. Ganondorf's trident to me is the most satisfying weapon to use in the game. At a breakneck speed, Ganondorf will slice through everything in front, left, right, and in back of him, with a pretty much perfect standard attack string, as well as great range, mobility, and speed on all of his combos. Having just a lackluster heavy attack does very little to mar this weapon's greatness. I always find that there's actually very little to say about the trident, because it only has one job, and that job is killing everything. From just mechanics alone, this weapon receives this mighty spot. But it's time to move on to what you've all been waiting for, the top 3 weapons in the game. Number 3. I'm sure that many were wondering where the Lu Bu of Hyrule would end up on this list. While I'm sure that I'll get a lot of shit for only placing him as 3rd best in the entire game, let's not discount how great this character is. Despite his Dragon Claw Spear being what I'm sure is an extremely heavy weapon, Volga swings it around more like a sword, giving him enormous reach as well as damage as he slices around him, which is made even better by his already great speed, which can then be taken to ridiculous heights by adding hasty attacks to his weapon. Despite only having 4 combos, all of them has a well-honed purpose, be it to juggle, distance damage, do a laser face, or do a big invincible long animation blast. Then there is his heavy attack, which I don't feel I properly praised enough in my guide, but it basically makes guarding against Volga a useless endeavor for your enemy. All around, Volga is an amazing character, which must mean that the final 2 on this list must be even more impressive somehow. Number 2. Holy shit, Twilight Midna is such a good character. Almost everything that the Twilight Princess herself can do works in complete synergy with her absolutely incredible heavy attack. Her standard attacks, despite being slower than the others that are this high in this list, hit huge groups of enemies and don't leave her vulnerable. Her combos then add in more focus damage as well as some even better area clearers, including a ridiculous cannon barrage that is the best long distance attack in the game. All of these then work towards filling her charge bar, which when used will cripple her enemies as she unleashes an entire field clearer of a blast, which can clear entire armies or fortresses in mere blinks of an eye. Twilight Midna makes everything that I've just said seem easy, and in this way she puts all other characters on the roster to shame. That is, all other characters but one. Number 1. For the number 1 best character in the game, I can only go with the warrior that may not look like it, but is actually a princess in disguise. That's right, I'm talking about Agatha, the Bug Princess. Oh, sorry, I read the wrong name there. I'm talking about Sheik. When putting everything that Sheik can do together in the context of all the other characters who can't, it quickly becomes clear that she deserves this number 1 spot. Sheik can create her own personal shield. She can make a fire trap on the ground for destroying charging enemies or bosses. She can suck enemies into a vortex for follow-up combos. And then she can self-charge her own special gauge from 0 to 100 for free. No enemies to attack or item pickups required. The details that I just listed are things that only Sheik has the ability to do in the entire game. But when you mix that with the rest of her kit, such as her great standard attacks, combo attacks, and her invincible dodge spamming, it gets even more frustrating. I mean, amazing. While Sheik doesn't have as much killing potential as the previous 2, she does have way more versatility than anybody else in the entire game, including Master Sword Link, who I disqualified earlier for cheating. With a full understanding of how to use her, it's kind of like playing the game on easy mode, and there is simply no one else who can fairly, without breaking rules, take the crown from our mysterious ninja princess here. And there you have it, everybody, my long-awaited list of the top 10 characters of Hyrule Warriors. I'd like to know, how do my picks compare to your own? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. However, I'm not quite done with this game yet, and as you might have guessed, before I bid farewell to Hyrule Warriors for good, I'm going to take the time to talk about the other important 10 of this roster, which is those on the very bottom. So if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can join me back here tomorrow as we take a look at the top 10 worst characters in Hyrule Warriors. Until then, everybody, this has been GamesBrained, and I hope you take care.